Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're reviewing AEW Double or Nothing 2023. If you haven't seen my shows before, I grade everything on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. With that being said, let's jump in, starting with the buy-in. We have the Hardy Boys, Jeff and Matt, teaming up with Hook, going up against the Gunns, Austin and Colton, and Ethan Page. If the Hardys and Hook win, Matt Hardy gets Ethan Page's contract. This was an okay match. Hook looked really good here. I like the fact that his gear is evolving a bit. Jeff Hardy had a botch in the match, which was very scary. He looked like he could have landed on his head, especially seeing the Mercedes Moné accident just a week ago that she injured her ankle on. I kind of think it may have been planned, but it didn't really look like it. Overall, the Hardys pick up the win here. I thought it was good, nothing great. I'm giving this one a 3. That's followed up with Martha Hart coming out to announce the Owen Hart tournament. She's joined by Tony Khan in what is probably the most absurd hat since Pharrell Williams wore that brown hat at the Grammys. It's cool to see this. I'm glad they're bringing this back. I love that the Hart family is involved. I do love that they found a way to honor one of what was my favorite wrestlers growing up in Owen Hart, a guy that I absolutely loved. I'm a huge fan of his. Just a great thing that they continue this tradition on. Now we go into our main show. It started on the pre-show where they had the entrances. We have the Blackjack Battle Royal, and I'm not going to say all the names that were in here. There were 21 people in, basically contending for International Championship, being held by Orange Cassidy. Story is that he put out an open challenge, 20 people answered. We had the Best Friends in there, Bullet Club Gold, Butcher and the Blade, Phoenix and Penta, Bandito, Commander, Swerve Strickland, Brian Cage, and I'm probably forgetting a bunch of them. Dustin Rhodes, Keith Lee. They're coming to me as I think of them. The beginning of the match was very confusing because I get it, and it's been done before. It was done in the first All Out, where wrestlers stay outside of the ring and don't get into the Battle Royal till after it starts for a bit. However, it felt like half of the Battle Royal started on the ground instead of just maybe 1 or 2 guys that were fighting or one heel that was trying to pick their spot. It ended up confusing me a bit when people started getting eliminated while there were still people wrestling on the floor. Like, who's in this? Who's not in this? You had moves like Commander diving out to the outside, but he was still in the match because he never technically got into the ring. Just a little bit of weirdness in the beginning. Overall, towards the end of it got really good, especially the interactions with Swerve Strickland, Big Bill, who looked awesome in this. This is probably the best that Big Bill has looked in AEW. Came down to him, Swerve Strickland, and Orange Cassidy. And this is where it got really good, those three interacting with each other, especially Strickland and Cassidy. Ultimately, Orange Cassidy picks up the win in a very cool elimination where he looks like he's going to line up for the orange punch, but he checks his hand, which is still damaged. He just kind of kicks Swerve Strickland's hands off the ropes instead. The ending, I'm going to give this a 4 just because the ending, without that last bit of interaction and some of the stuff that happened during the match, the beginning was very confusing. It would have been a lesser rating for me if that end wasn't so strong. That's followed up by an unsanctioned match. Adam Cole versus Chris Jericho with a special enforcer of Sabu. Jericho comes out. He has the whole JAS with him, except for Sammy Guevara, who I think now is out of the JAS maybe. He seems to be in babyface mode. Cole has Roderick Strong with him and also Sabu, who's supposed to be the special enforcer, but he's just there to help Adam Cole. Again, another thing that was confusing, even JR on commentary was confused because he thought special enforcer means you're a bonus referee. He was questioning Sabu, which, don't get me wrong, I'm an ECW mark. Sabu's had some of my favorite matches ever. I think he's one of the most underrated wrestlers of all time. I hope Tony Khan overpaid him to be here because his influence on pro wrestling is bigger than a lot of people really know. If you didn't see him in his prime and you go back and watch it now, you may not realize it, but he innovated so much of what is known as wrestling now. What is being done in wrestling started with Sabu. So it's fantastic to see him in here. I love Sabu. It just was weird. Sabu and Strong fight the JAS off to the back. Eventually, Britt Baker gets involved in the match too. Soraya comes out, she gets involved. It got to be where it was overbooked. There was too much going on. Combined with the Sabu confusion, it made it a little bit underwhelming. Adam Cole does pick up the win, where the ref calls a match for him when Jericho's not actually quitting. So Jericho has a bone of contention that he didn't quit. I thought this under-delivered. I'm giving this match a 3. I thought it was good. It could have been great, especially when it's Adam Cole and Chris Jericho. It just was a mess in my opinion. It was overbooked, too much going on, not enough just Adam Cole versus Chris Jericho. That's followed up with our tag team championship match. We get FTR defending their AEW championships against Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal with special guest referee Mark Briscoe. This is where I'm going to contradict myself with what I said in the previous few matches as compared to here. This was overbooked as well, seeing guys like Sanjay Dutt, Satnam Singh and Kara Jarrett get involved, and Mark Briscoe. However, that's been the story the whole time, and I know it's been the story in the other ones as well, but it didn't feel as forced, or it didn't feel like it took away from the match as much here as it did in the other matches. It could be for the fact that for the last 25 years, I've expected Jeff Jarrett to have run-ins on his matches. I actually really enjoyed this tag team match, and as great as FTR is, and I think they're one of the best tag teams in the world, I would not have been disappointed if Jarrett and Lethal won, because I think they're doing some really great stuff in AEW. Ultimately, FTR does pick up the win. I'm giving this match a 4. I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it. Even with all the silliness and all the overbooking, I thought it was good. I enjoyed this. They put together a great structured match. That followed up, we go to the back, where Ricky Starks is getting interviewed. He gets jumped by Juice Robinson and Jay White. As they're beating him up, FTR comes back, which had to be in lightning speed to run them off. So maybe going forward, FTR is going to go up against Juice and Jay. That'll be very cool in my opinion. That's followed up by another promo with Chris Jericho and Soraya. And here's the thing with this. I get that Soraya and Britt Baker are in a feud, but Chris Jericho has Anna Jay in the JAS. Why not be Jericho and Anna Jay in the mixed tag match instead of Jericho and Soraya trying to get a mixed tag match with Britt Baker and Adam Cole? Just a little thing, in my opinion. It would have made more sense because of how they're aligned. I know how the feuds are going and how it's been, and Soraya's been involved in this. Just my opinion. Why is Anna Jay in the JAS if she's not used in roles like this? That's followed up with a ladder match for the TNT Championship. We have Wardlow defending against Christian Cage. Wardlow has Arn Anderson with him. Christian Cage has Luchasaurus. This is another case of too much going on and not really delivering on a good level, in my opinion. I like Wardlow. Ever since he initially won the TNT Championship off of MJF, I think they fumbled the ball with him very badly. He doesn't feel as important now as he did then, and he kind of feels like an afterthought. Christian Cage, for how great he's been on the microphone, it doesn't feel like he's been presented as a serious contender anywhere. For this being a ladder match, it really had not that much interest from me. I thought it was kind of boring, kind of plodding. Again, Arn and Luchasaurus getting involved drug it down a bit. Overall, Wardlow does pick up the win, which I thought was pretty obvious. I'm going to give this one a 3. Again, another match that just doesn't quite hit the mark for me. That's followed up with a match for the Women's Championship. We have Toni Storm going up against the champion Jamie Hayter. They start the match with Hayter being attacked by Toni Storm, Soraya, and Ruby Soho. And it's a good while before we see any help come out when Hikaru Shida comes out to help Hayter. And I know why they did this. Hayter is legitimately hurt. But again, it had a little bit of a logical gap here. With all that's been going on between these 6 women, you would think that Britt Baker and Hikaru Shida wouldn't have left Jamie Hayter's side while they're at the building. Again, it's a little thing. Toni Storm picks up the win in kind of a quick match here. It underwhelmed again, and I love Toni Storm. I love Jamie Hayter. I feel like Jamie Hayter's run underwhelmed altogether. They could have done so much more. There were points of her run where she was the most popular woman in AEW, and I feel like this happens a lot as well. I just talked about it with Wardlow. They got her to the point where they made her a champion, and then they found a way to get the fans to lose interest in her. Overall, I'm going to give this match a 3. Like I said, I feel like it's another match that under-delivered in my opinion. Next up, we have the House of Black with an open challenge. The challenge is answered by the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn. A few things here during Max Caster's rap. Probably my favorite thing of the whole night. Max Caster referencing Dominic Mysterio, saying that Buddy Matthews is a cuck to a guy named Dominic. I thought that was funny. For the fans that are in the know, which is most of the fans that are going to be there, that's a great line. With the way they set this up, why hasn't any six-man team made a rule that helps them? In other words, like, if I was going to go out there and you said I could have my own rule, maybe I'd make up something like only Buddy Matthews could be in this match. Or our pins, we can get a 1 count to win, but you guys have to have a 10 count on a pin. Something that would benefit me to give me the advantage. I know that it's mostly been face teams going up against them, but you would think at some point someone would exploit that. I really like how they set the lighting up for this and how they give it a different feel. This is a really good match. House of Black does pick up the win. House of Black picks up the win when Black hits Billy Gunn with the Black Mass kick. I thought this was really good, from the rap to the match to everything involved. I'm giving this a 4. That's followed up with a TBS Championship match. We get Jade Cargill defending against Taya Valkyrie, and both of their entrances were awesome. Taya had what looked to be some showgirls with her. Jade had her sorority. I believe they said it was the AKA sorority. And wow, every time I see Jade Cargill, especially on these pay-per-views where she gets these special entrances, she's a goddamn star. There is no denying. She looked great. Her entrance was amazing. In my opinion, she's probably the best fully homegrown AEW talent that there is. This match was really good as well. The difference between this and their previous match is Taya is allowed to hit the road to Valhalla, which is the same move as Jaded. They struggle back and forth. Ultimately, Jade picks up the win here. I'm giving that match a 4. Afterwards, before we could even really celebrate that Jade has made it to 60-0, Mark Sterling says that she's willing to defend her championship anywhere at any time, which he immediately put his foot in his mouth because we get another match right away with the returning Chris Statlander coming out to challenge. I enjoy that it was Chris Statlander coming out, and I like this, and I enjoy the outcome. However, I felt they could have done it differently. She could have challenged here for a later event. I don't think they should have went right into this. To me, it diminishes her championship win a bit, and she kind of wanted a way that a heel would exploit it or a Money in the Bank type thing. Statlander does pick up the win here over Jade Cargill. For that, I'm giving it a 3. Like I said, I do like the outcome. I do like that Statlander is the one that beat the streak instead of bringing in somebody from the outside, like let's say a Mercedes Moné or Jordan Grace, who are both potentially able to come in now. You have another homegrown talent or someone that's been there since basically the beginning. So I do like that. I just think it was a little bit underwhelming and it went a little quick. I wish they would have set it up as a different match and had some hype to it. I'm giving this match a 3. I thought it was good. Like I said, there are a little bit of detractors from me. Next up, we have my favorite match of the show, the Four Pillars Championship match. We have MJF defending his AEW World Championship against Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, and Jungle Boy Jack Perry. I really enjoyed this. This is what AEW is all about, in my opinion. You had the fast-paced wrestling, the great psychology, the build of MJF, the 4 guys that have been marketed as the pillars, as the stars of the future, the ones that the company was going to be built around and has been in some ways with these guys. I do think at least one of them's stock is dipping very rapidly. However, the other 3 are doing nothing but going up. I really think this maybe should have been a one-on-one match with MJF and Darby Allin, because during the build-up, nobody was getting a better response than Darby Allin. Sammy Guevara turning back face on this, I feel like maybe it was a little too quick and too involved in this because the fans are now just starting to get back on his side. And Jungle Boy, in my opinion, in this build-up has shown that he's not quite on the level of the other 3. MJF obviously is a star. Darby Allin's a star. Sammy Guevara, he's had ups and downs, but he still feels more important than Jungle Boy. To me, this match and this build-up exposed Jungle Boy for being lesser than the other three. And that's not a knock on Jungle Boy. Some people just develop slower than others. I do believe he's the youngest of the four. I could be wrong here. And he was really good in this match. I just feel like the other three have outshined him. I really enjoyed this match. Ultimately, MJF picks up the win here. I'm giving this match a 5. Like I said, it was my favorite match of the card. By far, I really enjoyed it. Now we're going into our main event. Before we get to the main event, I want to address something right at the top here so I could go into the match itself without having to break it out of the match, because it's something that happens right up front. The band that came out, and I forget what their name is. I'm not familiar with them. I believe from what I read, they did Moxley's original theme song. They come out and the singer has like half of a black mask and half of his face is painted black with some red around the mouth area. As someone that's watched a lot of face painted bands, everyone from Kiss to ICP and Mudvayne and the thousands of other bands that have done this, I understand what they may have been going for optically, not knowing this band, and definitely at first, second, third, and fourth glance, it looked like the guy was out there with blackface on. And I don't think that's what he was going for, at least I hope he wasn't, because that would be really disgusting in 2023, but it looked like it, and it was very questionable. And I'm not the only person that said this. I know looking at Twitter, I've seen a lot of people were talking about this. It's the first thing that popped in my head. I watched Double or Nothing today because I watched NXT Live yesterday, so I tried to avoid all the spoilers, but when I got to this, I had to see, am I crazy? Am I the only one that's seen it this way? And I absolutely wasn't. There was a groundswell of it. It's just something I think someone should have maybe said, hey, this crowd doesn't know you. Maybe do a little bit different paint scheme on your face. And if that's how he paints his face every time, that's his gimmick, I'm sorry. But to me, it was a little bit too close to being blackface for comfort. He should have done something else. With that out of the way, let's go into the main event. We have an Anarchy in the arena match. We have the Blackpool Combat Club, Claudio Castagnoli, Wheeler Yuta, Bryan Danielson, and Jon Moxley going up against the Elite, the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, Kenny Omega, and Hangman Adam Page. I thought this was fun. Unlike the first one, where I think the first one energized the card because it was halfway through it, this was 3.5 hours into this pay-per-view, 4.5 if you watch the pre-game show. And at that point, there was so much on the card that had missed, in my opinion, that this just didn't elevate the matches for me. I liked it. I thought it was good. It wasn't as good as the first one. In a show where we have several gimmick matches, the Blackjack Battle Royal, a ladder match, an unsanctioned match, the House of Black Rules match, this to me was just another gimmick match on the card. I did think it was good. I liked it. Ultimately, Takeshita comes out with Don Callis. Obviously, everybody knew that this was happening. Turns on the Elite to give the BCC an upper hand. The Blackpool Combat Club pick up the win when Wheeler Yuta pins Kenny Omega, which that's going to be something that's going to help build Wheeler Yuta. I do like that. I do feel this was underwhelming, even though I think it was good. I'm giving this match a 4. It was just an underwhelming match on the end of an underwhelming card, in my opinion. Overall, I think there were more misses than hits here. The pre-match show with the Hardys and Hook versus the Guns and Ethan Page didn't do anything for me, really. Adam Cole and Chris Jericho was underwhelming. Wardlow and Christian Cage was underwhelming. Tony Storm and Jamie Hayter was a little bit underwhelming, and I understand that's for injuries, so I'm not going to knock it as bad as some of these others. The main event underwhelmed a bit. To me, this is the worst AEW pay-per-view that they put on. It was long, it had all the problems that all the other ones have, even the really good ones that are long and prodding and boring. It sticks out more when the matches aren't stellar. The other ones, the shows that have ran 4 or 5 hours, or they've had several 5-star matches, or in my opinion rating to 5 matches, have kept your interest through that. Whereas this, by the time it ended, I was tired, I was bored, I really didn't care who won at the end. Couple that with the whole debacle with the blackface. I'm going to knock this down. I'm giving this a 2. Even though no match is ranked that low on the card, the marathon of it, the controversies of it, the underwhelming nature of the show knocks the whole thing down to me. Like I said, I just wasn't really impressed with this show. They've done a lot better, and hopefully they'll do a lot better on their next pay-per-view. For anyone that paid $50 for this, I don't think you got $50 worth of a show out of it. Just my opinion. I was very underwhelmed. With all that being said, let's smash that like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't. And if you see where it says join, that's how you become a page member. If you made it all the way to the end, let me know what your favorite match of the show was. Put it down here in the comments. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been my review of Double or Nothing 2023.